I remember going in me, like when I got it diagnosed, going for x-rays and stuff, and it was quite severe, and sharp pains in the hip. And then within 2 days of going back onto the diet, it just totally dropped off.
Kev, how did you find Carnivore?
Well, Dave, it goes back to most probably January 2020. I went keto, so um, most probably seeing keto first in most probably mid 2019. So some documentaries on Netflix, I think, Fat the documentary, and that intrigued me. But I kept on putting it off for 6 months, and then in I think it was October, I went on a work trip to Korea, Seoul for a week, and that trip I just felt uncomfortable with me weight, and so I decided after and ahhing to try keto. So January 4th, 2020, just before the big C hit, I went keto and dived in on that, and that at the time really suited me. So I managed to lose round about 40 odd pounds. So I started off at my heaviest, which was that December. I slowly over the years gained weight, from me say early 30s up to at that time, I was about 56, I think, at the time when I went keto. So I gained up to like just over 14 stone. So 204 pound, I think, at me heaviest, and I went keto, dived into that, and really found it worked really well for me. And so the first 6 months, I lost 40 pounds, which was great. Managed to maintain that for well over a year, nice and steady. And then, as everyone says, the algorithms on YouTube started throwing up some of the early keto or carnivore influencers, notably Dr. Sean Baker, people like that, Steak and Butter Gal, and that intrigued me. And I done a bit of diving in on researching on that, and I think it was January 23. I decided to try for a month to coincide with the um, Dr. Sean Baker's carnivore month. So went that January, dived into the carnivore, quite strict, but again, it wasn't the lion diet or whatever. It was the general carnivore, so just the animal products. And I was surprised how much better I felt even after doing really well on keto. And in that month, I lost another £10 so went from mid 160 pounds down to 154, without any real effort. And I found I enjoyed it. Far simpler diet. Keto, I had dived right into that, and I was making a lot of keto menus and food items. And one thing I did find, I was trying to recreate the normal types of foods and the breads and things. Did manage to do some decent meals that way, but the carnivore, what I found after the first couple of weeks, I enjoyed the simplicity. It was so easy, and like I said, I started to feel even better. So that's how I found it. And then over the last year, I've been mainly carnivore. I have had a couple of excursions back into the low carb, and one period where we were on a family holiday to Singapore, which was a bit more difficult to stay keto, and went back to a bit more of a mixed diet. Still tried to keep it as low carb as possible, but things do creep in over that period, and so that's how I found it. And I'm really enjoying this simplicity and lack of cravings for all the other things, what people say.
Um, that's awesome. So, how have you been eating day to day?
Currently on Carnivore, I tend to have. I just I don't really have a set um, way, like say OMAD or anything. I just eat how body feels. So if I'm hungry, I'll eat. Tends to be 2 to 3 meals a day. So, but my first meal will be 3 to 4 hours after I wake up. I tend to wake up very early, like lots of people say. So my body clock seems to have shifted. So I'll have, say, generally some eggs of the morning for if I have breakfast, and then lunch will be a couple of burger patties and maybe a bit of cheese or whatever. I will eat dairy because I found no issues with it, and like I said, I've maintained round about what I think's a decent weight for myself. And then for me evening meal, which will be around about 5 o'clock in the afternoon, it'll be um, predominantly I'll have mince or ground beef. So I'll fry up, say, about 250 grams of ground beef with butter. Um, what I tend to do is scramble the egg whites into that, and I'll just top it off with 3 yolks on top, which is my standard go-to meal. And then, as everyone, I enjoy the odd steaks and stuff like that. But certainly, my standard meal is, or standard day is what I've just described, will be the minced beef, and then I'll maybe finish that off with some Greek yogurt as a bit of a dessert afterwards. So, like I said, I've had no issues with, like I said, dairy, and I'm quite active, so I do tend to enjoy it.
Nice. So what has changed for you in the time that you've been on Carnivore?
Um, Obviously, me weight. So, like I said, on average £50 down from what I was on me heaviest. So 204, and I'm hovering around about the 154, plus or minus a couple of pounds. Not too concerned. Um, Health wise, I'd say some underlying or low lying conditions or issues. I was I tend to think I was starting to get to pre-diabetic levels, so I had the general big belly, middle age man's stomach. Um, uh, in work at the time, I was hitting the afternoon crash. So, and to get over that, I was ended up going to get a coffee and a Kit Kat and things like that. So that's all disappeared. Me activity levels jumped up massively, especially over the last year. We'll touch that later if you want. Health wise, like I said, me weight dropped right down, and I was tending to have, say, low line digestive issues since a kid. When I think back, I remember going to the doctors as about a 14-year-old and getting prescribed antacids, and then later in life that turned into Zantac and things like that. And I think I had a bit of a grumbling gallbladder, which would affect me now and again. Nothing too serious. And then some of the other issues I had being diagnosed, say, in my early 40s with a arthritic hip, which is massively improved since. And I used to, the last 15 years, I used to get back spasms quite bad. So when it happened, I could be laid up for a week. I'd just tweak my back, and my whole back would go into spasm, and I'd be walking around like Donald Duck, and seriously affected. But since going keto, that greatly reduced all those symptoms. And then since the last year, I've had hardly any issues apart from a couple of times when I have gone off the diet and my hips flared up very, and as soon as I've gone back, within a couple of days, it settled down. So, for instance, a couple of weeks ago, I took part in a bike ride around Scotland, so the NC 500. We completed that in 5.5 days, and partly because the where we were up in Scotland, the last couple of days, I had to basically, because the amount of riding we were doing, just get some fuel in. So I ended up eating a bit more junk and standard food, and partly could have been because of the ride, but the way it felt, it just, my hip flared up when I got home, and within 2 days of doing that ride and going back onto the diet, it just totally disappeared again. So it does seem to be heavily influenced by my diet. So, and because similar thing happened when we went to Singapore as well. After a week of having a little bit of rice, I wouldn't eat all the rice at the meals and a few other things. Again, in Bali, in the third week, the holiday, we weren't doing a lot, but my hip flared up because I think I'd introduced, a few more carbs into the diet. So that's generally it. Like I said, a lot of me health issues were low lying, but I definitely think I was pre-diabetic when I look back at the pictures. I really don't recognize myself on some of me old pictures pre 2019. My face seems to have changed totally.
That's quite striking that as soon as you have some food that's off plan, the problems start again, right? And that's been
Yes,
my experience too.
yeah, exactly. And like I said, when especially doing the bike ride we did, which was it was a serious undertaking, and I only done like 3 months of training for that, around about 5 months of training, I think, and to be able to keep up, do that in 5.5 days, it actually surprised myself. And but like I said, as soon as I got home, it was just the old feeling that I had in my hip. Um, and I remember going in me, like when I got diagnosed, going for X-rays and stuff, and it was quite severe, sharp pains in the hip. And then within 2 days of going back onto the diet, it just totally dropped off. The only time I get anything in my hip is just a very low line, like niggle, and totally be able to ignore it. And but this was the old sort of feeling.
So how do your family feel about you bringing this crazy meat diet into the house?
Um, well, I think because I'd done low carb or keto low carb for a number of years, I think the start certainly the wife started especially as she saw me improvements over the years, it was quite, like I said, quite striking difference. And I'll send you a picture over if you want that you could um, put in. She's tried the certainly keto. She doesn't fancy the carnivore, so I think she's just started to accept that I'm a bit of a nutter, um, and she sees the difference in me. So she and the rest of me family, the they're intrigued, and again they can see the sort of energy levels that I have. It so once I explain it, everyone's been good, and even sort of got a nice little sort of community that we do like daily swims and stuff like that, and people accept it, question it, and stuff, and again intrigued and amazed at some of the things that I've been able to do. Like on the 500, the first couple of days, or the first half of the week, I was strictly carnivore, and they were amazed, or some of them were amazed at me being able to keep up and hardly eat during the day. And while they were having gels every hour and things like that, and during the training, one of the things I like to do is do all my training fasted, and going out for a 70, 80 mile bike ride totally fasted, and they're crashing after it. Like if they don't eat anything, they go into it. They hit the wall or the bonking after 30 miles unless they continually eat. Whereas I'm just quite happy to plod along all day.
Yeah, and, do you ever get questions like, "What are you doing? Are you taking steroids or something?"
um, Sometimes, yeah, there is some good comments, and like I said, people, some are quite amazed, and some are. There's a couple of people intrigued by it, and they sort of dabble in it. Yeah, so it's just sharing and just explaining. So again, they see the results of what I'm able to do. So I was like, there was a on the when we did the big bike ride, there was I think 18 of us, something like that, and I was on a sort of a hybrid bike. So a lot of them were on proper road racer bikes. So top speed, I couldn't hold onto them, but climbing some of the big mountains and stuff, I was able to, keep going all day, and I keep the pace generally with them, which they thought was good going. So I was getting some good compliments, but again, I just do seem to have quite um, keep going most times with yeah, it's just amazing, really.
Yeah. And sorry, Kev, how old are you?
I've just turned 60, so I'm actually a leap year baby. So I'm 29. I think that's the second person you've had on your channel. Is was I think it was an American woman. I think she
Yeah,
was
that's
60.
right. Yeah,
Yeah,
2 leap year babies in, the space of a month.
yeah. So I think me wife accepts that I act more like a 15-year-old rather than a 60-year-old. So yeah, it's and actually, I'd most probably say I do feel more 15 than 60, or the standard 60.
Yeah. So, you know, uh, I mean, I know perceptions kind of change as you get older, and I'll be 50 this year, so I'm the way I look at age has changed over time. But the whole time you were talking, and you're talking about your family, I'm thinking, I'm not thinking that you are 60 years old. You know,
Cheers.
it's like it's there's something about this way of eating that really helps you have it's not just appearance either, it's kind of an attitude or an atmosphere thing about you that makes you, I don't know, seem more energized and that kind of thing, or more vital, I guess you could say.
Yeah, definitely. Again, one of the things that I have noticed on it, and I think you've mentioned it in a couple of your interviews, is you do feel compelled to do things, exercise. Like I said, I um, the the bike ride around Scotland. It would have only ever have been a ambition. I don't think I'd ever done it, but I just dived into it when it got mentioned. It, like I said, heavily involved in outdoor stuff on the Wirral. So sea swimming, ride, and running now, and I just feel compelled and have stupid ideas like say doing the NC 500, and yeah, it's you do feel compelled to move more and do things, and some of the things don't seem as daunting as they used to be. So one of the things after the 500, talking to a few people, like some of the ones I rode with were, I would say, serious athletes, the ultra and endurance runners and Ironmen and things like that. So that's my next stupid idea, is over the next year, I want to train up and have an attempt at an Ironman this time next year. So yeah, it's a dangerous diet, I think, that way.
Yeah. So sorry, just give me 1 second, Kev.
Yep.
Sorry about that. My daughter's just got home and she's shouting at me. I had to let her in the front door, let her into the lobby, and now she'll probably ring the doorbell in a second.
No worries.
Yeah. So competing in an Ironman, like
Yeah.
that's just even contemplating that idea requires a lot of energy. Like I'm tired thinking about it myself.
Yeah, it's definitely something that it's a massive undertaking, and it's crazy. I know over the years, like over the last 18 months, I've done a lot of sea swimming, and last year, last summer, I did what at the time I thought was a great achievement, doing the Cross Mersey swim. So that, I think that was a 2 mile swim by the time you take into the currents and stuff like that. And that to me was a massive achievement. And then sort of stepped it up to doing the NC 500. And the daft thing about it is, before this year, really, the last 8 months or not even 8 months, say 6 months. I've done the couch to 5K a couple of times. This was when I was say a carb eater or whatever, and I'd do it and for say 8 week period, and then as soon as I've done it, I'd drop off. I'd park it. But now it's a compulsion to get out and move. It's really weird. So yeah, so going from a just about being able to do a 5K and up to doing the Ironman, which the run at the end is a marathon. It's going to be, like I said, it's a daft idea, but it's it's in my head now.
No, I think it's an awesome idea. Just because I just think it's awesome that um, eating this way, living this life, like as you mentioned already, you feel compelled to do this kind of thing. So I think it's great. So
Yeah.
outside of that, what does the future hold for you? You're going to be doing carnivore for life?
Yeah, and again, like I said, I'm not totally strict carnivore. Um, I'll, but I find myself better if I'm, like I said, around about 95% um, meat based, with if it include dairy and stuff into that. So that's most probably the best I feel. Um, I will flex a little bit if needs be. Um, but yeah, I think I'll be like keto raw if you want to call it that. Yeah, that's my future. And like I said, I find it so easy. You, I don't crave the other things as anymore. So I can, for instance, with the group I have of a morning. So generally, I get up say 5:30, 6 o'clock of the morning. I'll go down for a swim, and there's a nice little community there. And luckily we've got a marine lake that we can swim, dip in. During the winter, the very short dips because of the temperature. And then 3 or 4 times a week we'll go for a breakfast, and it's like I'm retired now, but that's similar as in work. So birthdays, there'll be cakes and stuff like that, and it just doesn't appeal to me anymore. So I can just wave that off, and I'd quite happily just have eggs for while I'm there, and a coffee. So
And that kind of freedom's awesome, right?
excellent, yeah. Like I said, and I just don't crave the sweet stuff. The only things that potentially I miss is some of the savoury ones. So pork pies used to be um, my Achilles heel, and occasionally I'll have one of them. But again, I'll just have one, and then that can do it. It was once in a blue moon type of thing, and then I'm straight back onto the carnivore way.
Nice. Nice. So Kev, if people want to reach out to you, do you have any social media, YouTube or anything like that?
I've got a small YouTube channel. It's not really based on carnivore. It's on some of the outdoor stuff I do. So it's Kev's 360 Wanderings, which I'll send you the link to. Um, yeah, it's like the cycling, paddleboard, and things like that. Just some of the places I get to, and hopefully I'll use that to track me Fat Man to Iron Man journey.
Sure.
Which
Well, I'll link to that below.
yeah,
And Kev, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story with us. I really appreciate your time.
Yeah, no problem, Dave. Nice to talk to you, and I do enjoy your channel.